Hi guys, Nik Bosco here, and I'm here to talk to you today about Bellator NYC. The time has finally come. Bellator coming to New York for the first time for their first pay-per-view of the Scott Coker era. The biggest card probably ever that Bellator has ever put on. The card is headlined by Chael Sonnen versus Wanderlei Silva. These two have been waiting to fight each other for quite some time now. This fight has been a long time coming, a long time in the making. And Bellator has put this fight on the biggest card. They're pulling out all the stops and they're bringing in all the stars. Let's start off with talking about the main event. Chael Sonnen and Wanderlei Silva are both 40 years old. They've had trouble past in recent years. They've both been suspended. They're coming back from suspension for PED use. And Chael Sonnen was actually suspended in 2010. He came back from that PED positive test and he went right on the Ultimate Fighter. He coached the Ultimate Fighter alongside Wanderlei Silva. They were supposed to meet at the end of that season and fight, but Wanderlei pulled out of that fight because he had hurt his hand in an altercation with Chael during the filming of that season, and they rescheduled that bout. And then Wanderlei decided he didn't want to take the drug test for that fight. Wonder why. So he was pulled out of that fight, replaced with Vitor Belfort, and then Chael Sonnen failed his drug test for that same fight and got suspended for 3 years. In that time, he left the UFC. He lost his job as an analyst, and now he's finally made his comeback with Bellator. He signed with Bellator, and when he signed with Bellator, he said that he had one fight in mind, and that was this fight with Wanderlei Silva. Wanderlei Silva actually hasn't fought since 2013. He is just coming off the suspension himself. He is now eligible starting from this May to fight again. He signed with Bellator. Looking back at Wanderlei Silva's career, yes, he had very much success in Japan when he fought there. But if you look at him against top opponents from the UFC and even other organizations, he's lost some of the biggest names out there. Tito Ortiz, Mark Hunt, Chuck Liddell, Vitor Belfort, Dan Henderson. So it's be interesting to see how these two do against each other, Chael and Wanderlei. Chael recently lost to Tito Ortiz in his return fight. So I think Bellator was actually booking these two together just for the show of it, and I think that is stalled a little bit since the first press conference they had was they beamed Wanderlei in through Skype, and I don't think it had the same effect as Bellator was hoping it would. And the last press conference they were supposed to hold in LA, Wanderlei didn't even show up for that. So I know that they had a press conference earlier this morning. There was a little pushing and shoving, last-ditch effort to sell this fight. I personally am excited to see this fight. It's been a long time coming, and these guys have bad blood, so I think it's going to be a good fight. Moving on to the co-main event, we have Fedor Emelianenko versus Matt Mitrione. This is the fight I've been waiting to see since they were supposed to fight back in February. Fedor is known as the greatest heavyweight of all time. He has much success in Russia, where he's from. He just won the Ryzen Grand Prix this past winter, and he looked great. Matt Mitrione is a very athletic individual. He played football for the Giants and the Vikings, and his mixed martial arts career has been great. He did lose his last 2 fights in the UFC before deciding to come to Bellator, but he fought some of the top guys there. I think that he can make a run for the Bellator heavyweight title when they decide to make it, and I'm really looking forward to this fight. They were supposed to meet in February, like I said, and it was Matt Mitrione that actually came down with kidney stones the 2 hours before that fight, and they had to be postponed. And I'm really glad they postponed it for this card, because this card is, like I said, the biggest card in Bellator history, and this fight is the one I'm looking forward to most on this card. Along with the 2 top fights, like I said, there are also 2 championship fights on this card, which you don't see a lot, that the championship fights are below the co-main event. We have Michael Chandler, the lightweight champion, taking on Brent Primus, who's a 7-0 fighter, good up-and-coming guy. He is very athletic, very skilled. He was taking on Michael Chandler, who recently defended his title against Benson Henderson, who is one of the greatest in the division. He's been with Bellator since 2010, Chandler, and he is not looking to give this title up anytime soon. The other championship fight we have is Douglas Lima Douglas Lima, this would be making his first title defense since winning it, and he's taking on Lorenz Larkin. Lorenz Larkin, just coming off the UFC, decided to test out free agency, which is the new trend now, and he decided to take his talents to Bellator in search of the title. He's here for one reason, and that is the title. He made his contract. He was getting an immediate title fight. This is his first fight in Bellator. He is currently 4 out of his last 5 wins, with defeats over Neil Magny and Jorge Masvidal, who himself is now looking for a title in UFC. He's a contender. So I'm really interested to see how Lorenz Larkin does in his Bellator debut. Recently, Rory McDonald just had his Bellator debut, another UFC prodigy coming to Bellator, and he did amazing. So it's good to see all these guys coming over, some big names, and on the biggest card. Now, talking about Bellator 180, we have the title fight of that card, which is a separate card, will be right before Bellator NYC. That's Phil Davis with taking on Ryan Bader. These two have fought before. It came to a split decision for Ryan Bader, and now Phil Davis is holding the belt. Bader needs to improve what he did in the last fight, and Phil Davis has, I think, the upper hand. He's fought in Bellator before. He's the title holder. He looked great when he won the title against Liam McGeary at Bellator 163. I was there. That was in Connecticut at Foxwoods. He looked amazing. He destroyed Liam McGeary for 5 rounds. I think he could have been a little more aggressive and finished the fight, but he stuck to his game plan. He looked great. He is ready to go. I think that if he keeps up the pace on Ryan Bader, I think that Phil Davis can defend his title. So this weekend, the Bellator, I will be in the city. I'll be at the fan events. I will try to get some more content. Stick to my YouTube channel. Check out my YouTube channel. I'll be putting up content. I can get some interviews or whatever I can get. I really appreciate you guys. Also, check out my Twitter. It's at Nik Bosco, Nikbos. Please share, like, do whatever you gotta do. I really appreciate you guys, and thanks for tuning in.